All right, guys. Today we're going to do something very important in life. It's called estimating tips. Estimating tips is really important. Anytime you go out to dinner or a restaurant or anything, you need to take care of your server. That server is working based on your tips. That's how they make their money. They don't make their money based on working. They make their money based on your tips. So you need to make sure you take care of your server. A lot of you are going to have a job through high school or college or maybe even further where you are working for tips. And you'll understand that tips are a really important part of your income. And if the person who you're taking care of doesn't give you the proper tip, it's not cool, and it really hurts your ability to make money. And they may not be doing it on purpose; they just may not be educated enough to know how to tip properly. So we're going to learn that today. Based on this skill, we're going to do the first thing you're going to do, and you're going to do this mentally for the most part. You might have to use a calculator a little bit, depending on how complicated the numbers get. I'm going to show you how to do it mentally. You're going to round the dollar amount, and the problem is going to indicate what to round it to. It's either going to say round to the nearest dollar or the nearest $10. So I'll show you both of those. Then what you're going to do is you're going to find a 10% value. And all you have to do to find 10% is move the decimal point in the number you have one place to the left. One place to the left. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have three numbers in your decimal, but the last number should be a zero because you rounded. So you're going to drop off that last zero so that your new value has two digits in a decimal, just like money should, dollars and cents. Now you have a 10% number. And that 10% number is what you're going to use as your base to decide where you're going to go from there. And depending on the question, if the question asks you to figure out a 20% tip, well, if you know what 10% is, just double that, because doubling that will make 20%. So whatever your 10% value was, just multiply it by 2, double it. Sometimes they're going to ask you to find a 15% tip. A 15% tip is a little more complicated, but it's not that bad. First, you want to figure out, well, if I have 10%, I need 5% more. Well, 5% is half of 10%. So take your 10% number and find half of that. That'll tell you how much 5% is. So now you'll have a 10% number and you'll have a 5% number. You'll add those two numbers together and that'll make your 15% total. So let's see how it works in action. Here we go. Estimate the amount of the tip by rounding the bill to the nearest dollar. So I'm going to figure out what they want me to round to, nearest dollar, and they want me to do a 20% tip. All right, so $43.20, nearest dollar would be $43. Cutting off the 20 cents because 20 doesn't tell me to round up, tells you not to round, to leave it alone, leave the 43 alone. That's my new value. I'm going to find 10% by taking this decimal and moving it one place to the left and then dropping off that last digit. So now $43 just became $4.30. And this is my 10% value. Okay. And now they want me to find 20%. So just take this value, multiply it by 2. Well, 430 times 2 is $8.60. And you just estimated the approximate 20% tip is $8.60. It's approximate because we rounded our dollar amount in the beginning. So it's not exact, it's an approximation. That's close enough. All right, let's do another one where we round a little harder. Estimate the amount of the tip by rounding the bill to the nearest $10 before calculating. So $4.94.93, I'm rounding it to the $10 place, this place. So this 4 tells me that this 9 should stay the same. So I'm going to have a rounded amount of $490 and no cents. You're always going to end with some zeros. And if I round to a 10, my ones should also be a 0. My tens place should be the last one that has a number that's not 0. All right, there's my round. Find 10%, move it over one place. Cross off that last number. We don't want 3 numbers in a decimal. So $490, 10% of that is now a nice even $49. And now I want to know what 20% is. So this is my 10%. I'll label that as my 10%. So find 20%. I just need 2 of those. Times 2. 49 times 2. Ooh, that's really bad. Let's try it again. 49 times 2 is 98. So my 20% tip on my $494.93 check is approximately $98. It's a lot of money. But if you think about it, if you're spending almost $500 at this restaurant you went to, your server probably had to work pretty hard to get you $500 worth of stuff, food, drinks, whatever it might be. They worked really hard. It probably took a while. You may have had a big group. And $98 is what they've earned. Tip them properly. Now we'll do some 15s. These are the harder ones. Estimate the tip by rounding to the nearest dollar. Figure out you're rounding to. So 64.60, rounding to the nearest dollar. This 6 tells me to take this 4 and move it up to a 5. So I'm talking about a round of $65. And I always start by finding my 10%. That's my baseline. That's my amount that I'm going down to start. Move that decimal one place. Lose that last 0. So I have now $6.50. That's my 10%. I want 15%, so I need 5% more. Well, 5% is half of this. So I'll take my $6.50 and divide it by 2. And half of $6.50 is $3.25. That's a 5%. So my 5% value is $3.25. And that means that my 15% will be the 10 and the 5 added together for a grand total tip of $9.75. Now, in reality, what you're going to do when you're making your tip is you're going to round it up to $10, or you're going to round it off with this number somehow. But we're just getting a ballpark, approximate estimate number. If you give that server $2 or $3 or even $5, you're under tipping them. You're not taking care of them the way they need to be taken care of so they can support themselves based on their work. But you also don't want to give them a $25 tip. I mean, that's really generous, but it's not really appropriate. You don't have to pay them that much. And our last one, we're going to estimate by rounding to the nearest $10. So I'm going to round to this place. So 213, this 3 says do nothing to the 1. So 213 becomes 210 when I round to the tens place, to the $10 place. And now I'll find that 10% number. Always find that 10% number first. That is your start. Move this over one place. Drop that last number. So now I have $21 exactly. That's my 10%. I need 15, so I need to get it another 5%. I need to take that 21 and cut it in half. If I divide it by 2, that gives me $10.50. So my 5% value is $10.50. So my 15% will be the 10 plus the 5 for a grand total of $31.50. I have to give a $31.50 tip. Again, super important skill. All the time I will see and hear about a group of kids, high school kids, middle school kids who go out to a restaurant together or a diner, and they get the bill and they leave a $2 tip, not thinking about the fact that their bill was $100. And $2 isn't a good tip. That's a 2% tip. That's insulting. You need to make sure you take care of people who take care of you. The servers at the restaurant or diner or wherever you went are working really hard to take care of you. And they're working really hard to earn a living. They're trying to pay their bills. They're trying to earn a living. You need to make sure that you properly tip. You take care of the people who take care of you. It's a really important skill in life. You're going to use this for your entire life. You're going to be eating dinners, lunches, whatever. You're going to be tipping for your entire life. So learn this one really carefully. It's not that hard to do. You can do it right in your head. And it's a great way to show somebody the respect and thank them for taking care of you. All right, get to that skill.